She was really a peach.
Yeah. So anyway, without further ado.
Okay. So normally when I teach this class, I start out by saying Chodesh Tov, but it was a couple of days ago. But I'll still wish you a Chodesh Tov, a happy Chodesh Iyar, Taurus. My name is Rina Lankry Perkel. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Phyllis, for having us and hosting such a lovely group of women. I'm so excited to share with you what I learned about this month. It's one of the things that I enjoy most about teaching is the preparing part and all the research. So I discovered lots of really amazing things about this month that I'd like to share with you, and the way that I like to teach is very much like an interactive conversation. So if there's things that you want to share or questions that you have as we go through the different elements of this month, feel free to just raise your hand, share your name, and then what you'd like to ask or any ideas that you have. So welcome. So before I get into the details of this specific month, I wasn't really sure how many of you have learned about Rosh Chodesh from a Kabbalistic astrology perspective. By a show of hands, has anyone learned it? Anyone been to a class like that before? No? Okay. So since a lot of these concepts will be new to you, I'll walk you through it slowly so that you can grasp it, because it's very deep Kabbalistic concepts, but very powerful if we can get our heads around it. So normally when I tell people that I teach Kabbalistic astrology, they're like, oh, is that even kosher? Like, are we even allowed to learn this kind of stuff? Because there's a belief that astrology is not part of the Jewish tradition, which is actually incorrect. There's many sources for astrology in the Torah, in the Talmud. There's a whole Masechet. Shabbat is about astrology. There's been lots of very famous Jewish commentators that have taught about astrology, like Ibn Ezra and the Ramchal. And obviously the more esoteric writings go into it even more deeply. So I'll share sources as we go along, just so you guys can get familiarized with where this information is coming from. The most iconic text on Kabbalah and astrology is a book called the Sefer Yetzirah, which means the Book of Formation, which is attributed to Avraham Avinu, to Abraham the patriarch. And is that surprising that Abraham wrote a book about astrology, or have we come across that in the past, that he has some sort of connection?
Yes.
Where in the Torah do we get a glimpse that Abraham was into astrology?
It said he looked into the stars and he saw the whole, he knew the whole universe, Hashem showed him everything in the stars.
Right, when Hashem was promising him that he would have a nation come from him, he looked in the stars, and actually Rashi goes into it there that he was arguing with Hashem because Abraham was very familiar with astrology, and he saw that his mazal, his fortune, or not fortune, mazal is not really luck. There's a different way of interpreting it. Mazal actually comes from the Hebrew word which means nozel, which means to flow. So he understood astrology as the influence that we receive from the upper worlds, the spiritual worlds, into our physical world. So he understood how to interpret that. And so in the map, in the stars, what he saw was that he wasn't supposed to have any children. So when Hashem showed him the stars and said, yes, you are going to have children, Hashem was actually teaching him a lesson about astrology, which is a lesson for all of us as Jews, which is that astrology is a physical, spiritual combination, and we always have the power to transform what's written in the stars for us. Hashem was teaching Abraham that we can use our free will to change our destiny. We always have the opportunity to shift things around. Nothing is set in stone. It's always up to us to change our what's been set for us, which I love. I think it's one of the most beautiful teachings in Torah, is that Hashem has given us a certain amount of like natural characters or traits, but those traits are not there to stop us, and they're there to really help us manifest our greatest potential, and to really guide us to achieve the path that we're meant to achieve in this world. So the Zohar, does anyone know what the Zohar is? Anyone heard that name before?
Yeah.
Who would like to share what the Zohar is?
I guess it's just Kabbalah. It's the book of Kabbalah.
So there's many books on Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the mystical commentary on the Torah, and the Zohar is an iconic selection of writings. There's actually like over 20 volumes that are parallel to the different portions of the portion of the week, the Parsha. So it's massive. It's not just one book. It's really like a collection of volumes. So it's very dense. It's very complicated. It's really very it's very hard to crack. It's like almost like a secret code. Okay. So it's really the essential source book for anything to do with Kabbalah. Anytime you learn Kabbalah, there's always something that you could refer back to the Zohar. The Zohar is sort of like the Chumash of Kabbalistic writings. So in the Zohar, in the portion of Yitro, do we know the portion of Yitro, what happened in the Torah in that section? Do we know what that portion is about?
Is it the Ten Commandments?
Yeah. You're my star student today. One of the things, it's actually one of the more fascinating sections of the Zohar, because it's the section that teaches how to read a person's face. And it was taught that Jethro actually taught Moses the language of palm and face reading. Because he was in such a high level of spirituality, but now he had to deal with like practical day-to-day stuff of overseeing all these people, and he had to create like a system of delegation and all this stuff. So Jethro was trying to help him like discover a shortcut of like how to be able to read people right away by reading their face and their palms. So it's actually a very fascinating portion. So in that section there, in the Zohar, it says that the map of the stars of the heavens is really like reading the face of a person. So I always see it, maybe it's very like 2015, but I always see it as like a computer and a screen. Like, what is a computer without a screen? Like, you could have like the best computer on the planet, but if you don't have a screen to show you like to express what's going on in that brain of that computer, you can't really see. So it's the same thing. The stars are really reflecting what's happening on a spiritual level. And it's kind of hard to grasp that something physical is actually manifesting something spiritual. But in essence, that is our work in this world, is to constantly look at the things that we see on a day-to-day basis in our physical world, and to extract lessons from it, to really understand that the physical world is really parallel to the spiritual, and it's a reflection of each other. So now that we know a little bit about the Kabbalah of astrology, I want to encourage you to understand that astrology is really there as a guide. It's really there to help people become self-aware and to understand more about themselves, and it's to help you, to show you, okay, these are my strengths. You know, like remind me your name again earlier? Harriet. Harriet and I were talking before, and she asked me, what's your sun sign, what's your rising, like, you know, it's sort of like astrology speak, and we all love to talk. It's like sort of like a shortcut, like, okay, if you're a Pisces, then you're like really spiritual, or if you're a Taurus, you're like really, so it's a lot of people who study astrology really use it as like a way to like identify core traits in people.
Like Myers-Briggs.
Like Myers,
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
Myers-Briggs of the stars.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love Myers-Briggs also. I'm sure you guys could like lock down what I am in Myers-Briggs in a minute. Yeah, that's in essence what it is. It's just one way to express a personality type, if we can say that. It's a tool. So then you could say, how is it possible that, for example, you have twins who were born the same exact day, same exact location, but they're completely different people? How do you explain that? Anybody want to explain it?
It's like with the
Yeah.
time, like the time that they're born also affects where, like how the person is, whatever, a person.
For sure. So I don't want to go too deep into the astrology thing because there's so much to teach from the Jewish side, but basically the way that astrology works is like this. It's sort of like, okay, we know, like, do we know what the zodiac is? What is the actual zodiac? What does it look like?
It's a circle.
It's a wheel.
It's a wheel.
And it's a wheel that's made up of what?
12 sections, 12 houses.
12 constellations. What's a constellation?
Time, lunar time period, right? Like with the new moon.
No, a constellation is actually a collection of stars.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So what do? We all played that game of like when we were little kids where we like connected the dots and we see like in the stars a shape of something. So each sign has its own constellation. So for example, I'm a Pisces, so that would be the sign of two fish in opposite directions. Joni, what sign are you?
Aries.
So you're an Aries, so that's a ram. So it's hard to look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's a ram, but astrology is a very, very ancient system, and it's been around for a really long time, that it was established that these groupings of stars represent different signs or different shapes. So in Torah, what do we see that's the most obvious? We have 12 signs in the zodiac, and then what do we have in Torah? The 12 tribes. Exactly. So one of the things that you learn in Kabbalah and astrology is how each sign is connected to each tribe. That there's a connection between the tribes and the signs. It's actually fascinating. I have this really big book at home of like Jewish art, like ancient Jewish art, and they show like these synagogues, like in Tveria and Caesarea in Israel, that have like these mosaic floors with like the signs, and then it has the names of the tribes. So there's a very ancient tradition that the 12 tribes are parallel to the 12 signs, which is one of the things that we'll go into here. So one of the things that I like to share, and this might be a little too spiritual for you guys, but really like when someone ends up being a Pisces, it's because they have a tikkun in that Pisces. What does the word tikkun mean?
Healing.
Right. It's your job in this world. Your tikkun literally means to fix. And what it means is that this is your purpose in this world. You came into this world to fix something. So each one of us has our pluses and our minuses, the things that we're great at, the things that we're not so good at, and then the thing that we know, this is what I'm here in this world to do. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I find that super hard. Like, who knows what their purpose is in this world? It's very hard to discover, at least to pinpoint it. Like, I think a lot of us are in the area and have a sense, but it's very hard to actually pinpoint it. So one of the things that Kabbalah teaches is that Kabbalah very much believes in past lives, that our soul isn't just from this lifetime, that we are a collection of life experiences, and that we've accumulated a certain type of, let's say, spiritual credit or karma as a result of all these different lifetimes. So some lifetimes we were able to fix certain parts of our soul, but there's still work to do. That's why we keep coming back. So with astrology helps us to pinpoint what is our tikkun, what is that point of repair that we need to work on in this lifetime. And when someone says that they're like a Taurus or a Pisces or a Libra or whatever, they need to hone in specifically on that trait. Now, when a lot of people, you like today we're going to talk a lot about Taurus. How many people here are actually the sign of Taurus? Anybody? Not even one? Wow. Okay, so this just proves the point that I'm going to make later, which is Taurus people don't like to leave the house. It's like such a struggle to get them to do anything. Like, my mom's a Taurus, my best friend's a Taurus, I've lived with Taurus, I'm like a magnet for Taurus people. And like you said before, you were also. And they're so keen, like they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm coming, oh that sounds great. Call them like an hour before, are you ready to go? Oh no, I'm good, I think I'm just gonna chill and maybe make some dinner or watch a movie or clean the house. Anything to stay home. Anything not to just like, leave the house.
That's why that was good, yeah.
Right.
Of course, here, right?
I thought that was Cancer.
Oh,
Cancer's too.
Cancer's too, but not in the same way. But we'll go into that side. So where was I? Okay, so that's what I meant to say, is that that's their thing. Their thing is that they need to break out of that shell. Like, the way that they're going to grow is by, like, getting out of that box that they constantly put themselves in because they feel so comfortable. And that's why when you go to a Taurus home, it's so welcoming. Like, you just want to, they make it like gorgeous, and like their favorite thing to do on like a Sunday afternoon is like go furniture shopping or go to like Bed Bath & Beyond or something, like anything that has to do with like decoration or gardening or arts and crafts. Like, they're very into like sensual, physical things that are like beautiful and relaxing. So that's Taurus. But we'll go, I'm giving you like little tastings because there's so much to share. But I wanted you to first get an understanding of Kabbalah and astrology in general. So are we all good? Everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So back to the idea of the twins born at the same time and all of that, that's because they're coming in with their own neshamas separately, right?
Exactly. They have each one has a collection of soul experiences that they're bringing into this lifetime, that it doesn't matter that they were born like a minute apart. Their soul is so much more complicated than just that specific time. But what I wanted, thank you, you actually brought me back to the point that I initially wanted to say, which is that even though today we're talking about Taurus, we all have elements of Taurus inside of us. We actually have all 12 signs inside of us, but at different degrees and in different combinations and different aspects, and that's why people, like do their charts and all that kind of stuff. But what's the point? The point is that right now, in the month of Taurus, we're all exposed to that energy. That essence that the Taurus lives their whole life, we're experiencing right now in this month. So it's worthwhile to understand what they represent and how we can tap into it in a way that heals our souls and our mission. Okay. Which tribe?
Is associated with Taurus.
Anybody want to take a guess, or should I just share? Okay, so the tribe is Issachar. And do you know what symbol they represented? Issachar was...
They fished while the other one studied? I don't know.
Right, you're so close. I swear you're like my source. No, they're so close. So one was Zevulun was the one that was the ship, what's the word?
Merchants.
Right, like the ship merchants, and they were very wealthy, and they would support Issachar, which were the learners. They were the people who were the learners. So how is that connected to Taurus? Is that they were very stable, very persistent, very they hardworking. Like, they knew how to take on a commitment of staying all day and just learning all day. So that was a really great partnership. Okay, so now I want to give you a quick sort of overview of like what we're going to talk about in general, and then I'll start going into the details. So, what is your name, by the way? The one you mentioned, the tribe. What's your name?
Marlene.
Marlene. Do you mind sharing what your sign is?
I'm an Aquarius.
Really?
Yes, I really like to do the dishes. I love water.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
People ask me, how could I possibly do that many dishes? And I say, I'm an Aquarius. I love water.
Wow.
Wow.
That's true, I did like the water.
It's very healing. Yeah, agreed.
But I have to add one more thing
Sure.
to what you're saying, because I really didn't believe in it until I married, and my husband, and now it turned out many years ago we discovered that one of our close friends was born on the exact same day.
Yes.
And it is uncanny how many things are similar between the two of them. There's a woman and my husband,
Yes.
and it's really, we laugh about it. Like, I laugh about it, I have to.
So
because
does that reinforce for you that there is something
completely,
there?
Completely,
Yeah.
100%.
It's interesting because once you start learning this and you really understand the qualities of each sign, some people are just so obvious. Like they just stand out. Like also I could tell you're an Aquarius because you're a bit stylish, like with your necklace and stuff. Like Aquarius people are they're very into like expression through fashion. Yeah, and they're also like very people oriented, like they're really outgoing. So I picked up a little bit on that, but that's what I was asking. Okay, so let's get started. So this month is so filled with light. This is one of the most positive energy months of the year, and there's so much to learn about it. But I'll start with where we get this from. What time of year are we in right now? Spring. So we just came from Pesach. And Pesach was like this big surge of energy, you know, like both Jewish like history of like what happened and actually cosmically what happened. So Pesach is a time when God just like grabs our hand, yanks us out of Egypt, and like gets us through the water, and a nation is born. And I can't help but see it as sort of like a birthing. You know, as like Mitzrayim means something constrained, so I look at it as like a contraction, and the splitting of the sea where they walk through the water is sort of like a birth, like the water breaking and the child coming through the water. Not yet. but really Nisan represents a birthing. It's the first month of the year. It's really Aries in general is known as like the baby of the zodiac, and it's a time of like it's the whole energy of Nisan, which is Aries, Iyar, which is Taurus, and Gemini, which is Sivan, which is next month. That cluster is considered the fire energy of the year. So we have 12 months, and in the Jewish calendar, it's actually broken up a bit differently than in the Gregorian calendar. So firstly, you have the fire energy. Fire represents power. It represents creativity. It represents productivity. It represents like a really strong force. It's sort of like the engine that kickstarts the whole year ahead, and it's a time of like very intense light. So Nisan is just like we get this energy for free. We didn't do anything. Hashem just pulls us out. We didn't do. If anything, we were like minus 50 when Hashem pulled us out. Right? We were not at a credit level. Huh? Minus 49. Right. And now we need to get back up to plus 49 with the counting of the Omer just to get to the 0 level, so that we're like, you know, at the level where we could merit to have the Torah. So that's what Iyar is about. Iyar is like, okay, we got out of Egypt for free. Now we have to earn what Hashem wants to give to us. So this month is a month of earning. It requires work, because what is the mitzvah that we do every single day of this month? The counting of the Omer, which is a spiritual process. Not only is it a mitzvah that you actually have to count, but it actually represents a process of spiritual refinement where every single day you're correcting a certain aspect of your soul. So that part is already, we're maturing. We're not anymore receiving for free as a child. Now we're like an adolescent, where we're learning how to earn our keep. We're learning how to be independent and to discover our own identity. And then comes Sivan, which is next month, which is a much higher level of maturity. It's the point where it's called I actually just realized I should teach you this concept in Kabbalah before we move on, because it's gonna be repeated throughout the class. I'm good, thanks.
Okay, you have Kabbalah.
Thank you. In Kabbalah, there's the concept of the 3-column system. Has anyone heard this before? Is this new? Okay. So, in order for something to be stable, it has to have at least 3 things to stand on. Like if you, right? Like 3 legs to stand on. So the same, that's physically, and it also applies spiritually. So the 3-column system of Kabbalah is basically teaching you that everything in this world falls into the category of these 3 columns. So the 3 columns are almost like a light bulb. In a light bulb, you have the plus energy, and then you have the negative energy, and then you have the filament in the middle that sort of creates that resistance, which balances it out so that the light can shine, right? So in Kabbalah, the way that we refer to that is the positive energy is called chesed. Chesed represents the energy of giving, of sharing. It's like, it's just flow, just giving and sharing. And then the minus energy, column is the energy of Gevura. So that's the left side. Chesed is on the right, Gevura is on the left. Left energy or minus energy represents restriction, judgment, din. It's Gevura. So that they're opposites of each other. And then you have the middle column. So you have right, left, and center. The center column represents Tiferet. Tiferet represents balance and mercy, and is really the integration of 2 opposites. So that's in essence what is happening throughout the year. We have the 12 months, and each of the 12 months is broken up into a cluster of 3. So the first cluster is the one we're in now, where you have Nisan, which is Chesed, right column energy. God pulled us out for free. Now we're in Iyar, which is left energy, judgment. And next month, we're going to be in Sivan, which is center column, which is when we receive the Torah. And then that cycle repeats itself for the next cluster of 3. And that's the pattern that exists throughout the year. So every 3 months, you have that theme. So, so what do we do right now? Right now, when you think of judgment doesn't sound like such a great thing. Like, how could this month that is considered the month of light and the month of healing be a month of judgment too? It's like contradictory. But in essence, what we learn is that everything in life has a light side and a shadow side. And it's up to you to use your free will to tap into which side? The light. But it's not so easy to tap into the light, because otherwise we'd all be super happy and get everything that we want. So I'm going to teach you some secrets today that are going to help you tap into the light side of this amazing month versus the dark side, which is the judgment. Okay. So God gave us a really amazing tool, which is the counting of the Omer. Now the counting of the Omer is a way to help us realize that every single day is special. You don't have to wait for a holiday. You don't have to wait for like Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot in order to connect. Every single day has its special energy that you're supposed to tap into. We actually just recently learned this. I was learning, Joni was at my house on Monday. We had a really amazing rabbi speak. And we were going through the Chumash talking about Bereshit. And we were talking about Adam and the Garden of Eden. So the question was, what was Adam's job? What was he supposed to do in the Garden of Eden? Because it said he was supposed to protect it. And he was supposed to work it. But I don't know about you guys, but paradise to me would not include any work. It would include a lot of like chilling by the beach and, you know, anything but work, right? So why does it say that God was giving Adam work to do in the Garden of Eden? So what the teacher taught us, which I loved, I thought it was so brilliant, was that What was Adam's job? His job was to observe the world and to learn lessons from the physical world about the spiritual world. That's all he had to do. He just had to observe. And then, once he acquired that wisdom by observing, then he could take that wisdom and integrate it in an experiential way. But what happened was he did the opposite. He experienced by eating from the tree, and only acquired wisdom after. So he did everything hafuch. He did it the wrong way, the wrong order. So in essence, that's what we're trying to rectify constantly. We need to learn how to access wisdom. Our job in this world is to build our wisdom. And because the wisdom is what refines us. We think that we need to get to action. That through action we acquire wisdom. But Hashem says no. The way to acquire wisdom is by connecting to observing the spiritual world within the physical world. And that's part of what this month is about. Is everyone with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll go more into it later, but I just discovered it this week, so I'm really excited about it. Okay. So, I know, like, whenever I'm, like, we were saying this is a month of cleansing. I know whenever I'm thinking of cleansing, yeah.
You use the adjective observing the spiritual world
Through
rather
the physical
than
world.
experiencing the spiritual world
Right.
in order. Can you observe the spiritual world?
Yes.
You can.
According to Kabbalah, that's what everything in our life is. Everything that we see as physical is really a manifestation of its spiritual root. Everything has spiritual energy in it. Nothing is just physical on its own. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to survive.
But I mean, spiritual is elusive. So the adjective observe is an action verb. So aren't you you're experiencing the spiritual rather than observing it?
I think once it becomes an experience, it starts to become physical. Like an experience of either crying or an experience of touching or experience of taste, all those things become now the physicality of things.
True.
So I think maybe the observance is more in the mental. It's not as much like, if you're looking at a picture, it's not necessarily an experience, you're kind of observing it, right?
You mean
Right.
observance
So-
or awareness?
See, yeah, that's what I think of. I think of it, it's creating the awareness.
Create, right.
It's like a consciousness. It's
Yeah.
creating the consciousness behind life, that you don't just see things for what they are, but that you try to see beyond just the physical. That
Right,
everything.
that's awareness,
That's the
right.
right.
And that would be, right, that sits better.
Yeah. Okay, good. So since this is considered a time of cleansing, I know whenever I clean, that the more you clean, the more gunk comes out, right? Or like, I don't need to give examples, but we all get that. We all know what cleaning means, right? So that's part of this process of like this process of cleansing. Why are we doing cleansing? Because we're now in the stage where we're preparing to receive the Torah. Shavuot is in a month. And you don't just show up. It's like a bride showing up to the wedding without showering or getting her hair done or getting a manicure. Like she just shows up like she's going out to like a Sunday, ball game or something. It's not going to be the same experience. So the same goes here. We're getting ready to receive the Torah from Hashem. So we need to prepare for that glorious moment, and that requires a cleansing process, some scrubbing, some washing, some brushing, but on a spiritual level. So that's what this month is. So therefore, a lot of the things that we're doing that we'll be experiencing this month might be rough. They might not be so pleasant. But they're brought into our lives in order to help us prepare to like clear out the gunk. So what does that mean? We might have some conflicts with some people, or somebody will push our buttons, or we'll get annoyed. Like, things won't be so easy. But it's not there to annoy you just for the sake of annoying you. It's to help cleanse cleanse you spiritually, and spiritually you don't just count the Omer and say, hey, I counted the Omer, I did my part. Hashem is going to create experiences for you, and people are going to come into your life where situations are going to happen, and you're going to need to be conscious and be like, yeah, I'm preparing myself right now to receive the Torah. I'm not going to react in the way that I normally react right now. How can I see what's coming to me now as a way to learn or to fix what I have to do? And that's part of the cleansing process. So you have a month or more until Shavuot. So if things come your way, try to see it from that perspective.
You know, it seems to me that the Pesach, is about identifying our Mitzrayim, identifying those things that you need to cleanse, and
Right.
that this is just like the next stage in that process. At first, in Nisan, first we're having to look at ourselves. You know, unlike other holidays, Pesach is really about looking inside of ourselves to see what is holding us back, you know, from being our best person, and then that's creating the next step, which is the cleansing.
For sure, because the thing is now it's like Pesach is like when you examine yourself. Now it's in relation to other people. Because what is the essence of Torah? If one was to ask you, as we've seen in many times over the years, if somebody was to come and ask you, tell me the whole Torah in one line, what would you say?
A handbook to be a better person.
No, like what is the essence of Torah? What is the central core message of Torah?
Do unto others.
Do unto others? Or what's another way of saying it?
Be kind.
What's onerous to you, don't do to other people.
Right.
Right? Or the classic, all correct, everything you guys are saying, but the classic sentence is Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. Right? So what does that imply? It implies that you first love yourself, and then you can love your neighbor. So it's that process of first, Nisan is first like, okay, get to a point where you feel good about who you are. And now prepare yourself to be in relation to the other person, because the majority of the Torah is laws that are connected to you and in relation to the community, to the world, to another person.
Very good.
So that's what it connects to. So now we're going to get really Kabbalistic. So the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book that I mentioned earlier, which is attributed to Avraham Avinu, talks, if you read this book, it's super tiny, but it's so crazy that you need like a book this big to like explain it. But basically, it's very simple. It's basically what it does is, it's Avraham saying every single month has a particular energy and a particular ruling letter. Okay, so what does that mean? How is it possible that a letter could control the energy of the month? What is he talking about? So in Kabbalah we learn that the Hebrew letters are the spiritual energy forces that God used to create the world. So when we read Hebrew, Hebrew is not like every other typical language. Hebrew is, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, according to Kabbalah, are spiritual forces. And the letters themselves are manifestations of the spiritual energy. Where do we see a clue for that? In the Torah, in the Bible itself. Where do we see a clue that the Hebrew letters are spiritual energy forces?
Like when God spoke the world
Into being. Exactly. What would be an example
like what?
of one of those things that he did?
I don't know how to explain. Like the Kabbalah perspective, or like
No, just
from the
simple,
Chumash?
straight from the Chumash.
Day and night.
Like the beginning, like God, like there was like nothing, and then God, I don't know, created. I don't know, but I know from the Kabbalah, but not from the Chumash.
Well, now that you're totally on track, I was just trying to get the verse which says, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That's it. It sounds so simple, but you're like, what? Did he just say, "Let there be light," and all of a sudden there was light? How did he do that?
He's God.
He's God.
Right.
So Kabbalah always takes it one step further. And Kabbalah draws on that and says, how did that happen? That God used speech to create the world. And the language or the tools for that creation was through the Hebrew letters. Therefore, every Hebrew letter has its own energy. There's actually a really cool midrash in the Zohar that talks about how every Hebrew letter went up to Hashem and said, God, please choose me to be the first letter in the Torah. So everyone had an argument for why they thought they should be the best one, and we all know which letter won, right? That won the competition. So in Sefer Yetzirah, this book by Abraham, he teaches us every month gets 2 letters. Okay, why 2 letters? So one letter represents the sign, the constellation, which is Taurus. So Taurus, we know, is a combination of stars and equals Taurus. So the constellation of Taurus is the letter Vav. And then there's the planet. Every sign is ruled by a planet. And the planet for Taurus is Venus.
Mars.
It's Venus, according to Kabbalah.
Oh.
We're going according to the
Okay,
Jewish.
sorry.
It's Venus. So the letter that created the planet Venus is the letter Pe. So it's the letters Pe and Vav. What do we know about the letter Vav? What is the letter Vav? Do we know anything about that letter?
It's in Hashem's name twice.
It's once.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And what does it do in that name? Do you know what Kabbalistically what's going on there?
I didn't hear what you said.
That it's in one. It's Hashem's the name, the Tetragrammaton. You have the letter Vav.
Oh,
But does that and just in English and Hebrew grammar, what does Vav do?
I thought it was like
And.
And it's
And.
exactly. It just links.
Yeah.
It links the whatever word to another word. That's all it does is it links. Same thing in the spiritual world. Vav is a link. It links the spiritual world to the physical world. So it's considered the letter that is the channel or the funnel for channeling spiritual energy into physical energy.
I've heard also about the shape of it. Like, I've learned the Tetragrammaton by shape,
Right.
and since the Vav goes like this and then comes down, it brings godly energy.
Exactly. It looks like a straight pipe,
Right.
right? It looks like a straight pipe. So that's about the Hebrew letters, and we'll go into it a little more. So that's one of the things it says in the Sefer Yetzirah. It tells you the 2 letters. What else does it say? It also talks about different parts of the body are ruled in each month. So this month, the part of the body that the Taurus rules is the left arm. Now, remember I taught you the 3-column system? What does left represent? Right, left represents judgment. It also represents desire to receive, because the right you give, the left you receive. So people who are in Taurus, or the energy of this month is the receiving energy. It's the takers. They're very selfish. But you need desire. If a person doesn't have a desire for something, they're not gonna get it. You need to create desire desire in Kabbalah is considered a kli, a vessel to hold the light. That in order for people to manifest things in their life, they need to have a very strong desire for it. So Taurus is super strong desire, which can be manifested in a selfish way, but if channeled correctly, it's in a positive way. So Vav means that Hashem wants to give us a lot of light. That's the letter Vav. And Taurus having this left hand energy means that we're ready to receive it. So it's sort of like a unity. You have the flow wanting to come down, but it's not coming down nowhere. It has a place to be held, which is that left hand energy. So now what do? You're like, okay, great, the left hand is receiving. But what did we learn about the left hand? What does that represent, the left hand? Judgment. So does that sound like a good thing? Do we want all that light in the hands of judgment?
No.
So how do we transform that?
like with Gibru, I guess it's like not just judgment, but like having boundaries and like pruning. So maybe if you like have good pruning of yourself, you can like transfer it into chesed and able to give it through like a filter system.
Exactly. So the thing with light, and I'll define what light is, but the thing with light is movement. It's circuitry, it's movement. So if you want light in your life, you can't just hold on to it. You have to keep it moving. You have to keep it going. So how do you keep it going? By sharing. You get light, you give light. You get light, you give light. You get light, you give light. It's constantly flowing, flowing, flowing. But if you get light and you're like, no, that's mine. I'm not giving it to anybody. That's mine. I'm keeping it. My stash is here. Guess what? That light's going to stop because there's no more space to receive anymore.
It's
See,
interesting also, Taurus is a sign of being generous.
the
It's
Taurus,
it's an attribute of Taurus is generous. So
Right.
that could go into that
well,
whole
like I said, anything to do with an actual midah, which is a trait,
Right.
always has two sides. You can either, you have the free will to flip it to the shadow or to the positive.
Yeah.
So it's in your hands to do that. So okay, I'm just reviewing my notes. We already covered a lot of this stuff. Okay, now we're gonna get to the juicy part. We're gonna talk about light. So when people say, you know, this is a month of a lot of light, what do they mean light? What does light mean?
I think it's like resource. So like if we're receiving it so much, like we have like the opportunity to like have the resource to put it in different actions. Like if Nissan we're like having all this creative boom, like we're like have the light resource to like, okay, I'm gonna channel it this way and this way and this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay. What else? When you think of them, let's say I say to you, okay, Taurus, now we're in the month of light. What does that mean?
Openness.
Illumination.
Yeah.
Like
Energy.
illumination, you mean as like awareness, like consciousness?
Yeah.
Okay, like wisdom?
Like understanding.
Okay, what
Energy
else?
and potential.
What's that?
Energy and potential.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Brachas.
Exactly, blessings. So wisdom, blessings. What would be an example of a blessing? What would be like when you give a blessing to someone, what's the best blessing you could give them?
That they should see the good in things. That they should recognize the good.
That's pretty good, but what's a more practical blessing?
Clear.
Good health.
Clear
Exactly.
health, right.
What's the number? That's, I know for me, that's like my favorite blessing to give and to receive is health. Because without health, you don't have anything. It's the most important thing. So blessings. Blessings means health, understanding, wisdom, healing, love. Love is a blessing. So when we say that this is a month of light, we mean that all those things. This is a time to receive all those things. And when we say light, what we're really referring to, where is this light coming from? It's coming from God. Everything that comes from God. So when we say the light of God, we mean the aspect of God that can be revealed. Because the essence of God we can never connect to. We don't know what that is. We can't fathom what that is. But the light is an expression, it's an extension, it's a flow that we receive. So that's what when I say Iyar is the month of light, that's what I mean. It means that this is a time for very, very high energy. Like super, super abundant light flowing. Yeah. So don't we all want that?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll teach you a little bit about how we can get that. Okay. So I'm very into like knowing the source for things. Like, where do the rabbis come up with this stuff from? Like, how do they decide? Oh, this is the month of light. Why this month? Why not February or June? Like, there's so many months. Why choose Dafka this month to be the month of light? Where did they get that from? You think they just made it up?
No. Metaphorically, perhaps.
I think that they try to concretize things that are very spiritual that are happening, and find like real ways of showing where does this come from. So I think that there's truth there, but it's also an attempt on their end to try to like connect the dots. Like, where is this coming from? Okay. So we know that the name of something in Torah or in Hebrew, and the name represents the essence of something. That's why they say when you choose the name of your child, you want to have something that really connects to like the essence of who they are. Or if you have a Hebrew name, that you should use it because that's really the source of your soul. Even if you don't want to use it every day, like if you have someone call you once a week and say, "Hey Sarah," or "Hey Simcha," or whatever your Hebrew name, it's really important because it draws down the essence of who you are. Okay, so the same goes for everything else, for the months. The name is not just a random name. The name represents the essence of what this month is about. So Iyar is connected to a word in Hebrew that means light. What is that word? Or. Do we see the connection? Iyar, or. Same root. So that's one sign. Another sign. Iyar is actually, in the Torah, Iyar doesn't have a name. It's just called the second month.
Oh.
It doesn't even get a name. It just gets the second month of the year. So, in biblical times, or I should say post-biblical times, before the Jews left Israel after the exile, Iyar was called Chodesh HaZiv, the month of Ziv. What does Ziv mean?
Wolf.
What's that?
Wolf. So,
No, that's that.
Really?
Brilliance, light, exactly. So that's another source. The month that rules, the planet that rules Iyar, we said is the planet of Venus, which is in Hebrew called Noga. What does Noga mean?
Like,
What is it?
Is it like beauty, like something, or like raw something? I don't know. Don't look at me.
Noga actually also means light, like brilliant light. So that's another one.
You can see it all the time.
Yeah, it's the brightest
You see it
planet.
in the sky all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What, the
Venus.
Yeah, it's so bright.
really?
It's the brightest planet. It's like, yeah.
So that's the Hebrew name for it is light. It's called the planet of light. Okay. Now what else do we have? We have 2 holidays that fall during the time. They're not like classical Jewish holidays, but they're like traditional ritualistic holidays that we observe, or not 2, sorry, 1, that we observe during Iyar. Does anyone know what that holiday is? It's a time when we actually can go to a concert.
Lag
Lag BaOmer. Okay, so why do we celebrate Lag BaOmer?
Thinking
It's
about
when
Rabbi Akiva?
Rabbi
Shimon
Shimon
Bar
Bar
Yochai.
Yochai like came out of the
Yeah.
cave, right, and was like blah blah, right? Like,
So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the author of the Zohar. And what did we say the Zohar is? Remember in the beginning of the class?
Kabbalah.
It's like the Kabbalistic Chumash, right? It's like the essential text. So what that means is like 2 things happen. One, he actually, Rabbi Shimon died on Lag BaOmer. So we know that whenever a tzaddik dies, it's not a bad thing. It actually brings a lot of light into the world when a tzaddik dies. So Rabbi Shimon died, and that's actually why. Do you know why we burn fires in Lag BaOmer? Why we do bonfires? Anyone know? No. Actually, because Rabbi Shimon was called the Great Light, and also on the day of his death, there was like a fire surrounding his house, because he was so holy, and there's so much. He was sharing so much like deep secrets right before he was about to pass away, that like no one could access it except for like his core group of students. So there was like a huge fire around him. And it was also when the Zohar was completed. So what does that mean? It means that this is a time in the cosmos when a lot of light came into the world. What do we mean by light? We said before. Wisdom, consciousness. This is a time when a lot of very high consciousness and very high wisdom came into the world during this month. So one of the things that I love about learning Kabbalistic astrology is that it puts Jewish historical events in perspective. It makes you realize that the reason why we celebrate holidays and different things isn't because it happened back then. It makes you realize that the reason why those things happened is because these times of the year have core energies that we're tapping into, and that's why those events manifested, because they were a representation of what already existed there, essentially, on an energy level. So what that means is that just like the Zohar was revealed during Iyar, this is a time when we can access very high teachings. It means that this is a time when, like, let's say you go to a shiur and you're like, oh my gosh, I never would have understood that before in my life. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I get it, it makes sense. That means you're receiving a lot of light. This is a time of the year when Hashem is like blessing you with like a lot of consciousness and a lot of wisdom, and you're like, "Wow, I get it." Like it's not passing over your head. Like you can actually absorb it, and we need to understand that. So I would recommend that you go to a lot of shiurs this month and learn as much as you can.
Are you giving any more?
I will if you want to. I'm happy to teach some more. All right, let's continue. Okay, so another link to what I just shared about wisdom is there's a very famous saying in Perkel Avot. What is Perkel Avot? Ethics of the Fathers. It says Rashit Chochma Yirat Adam. What does that mean? Rashit Chochma Yirat Adam. What's that? Exactly. The beginning of wisdom is Yira of Hashem. What does Yira mean? Awe. It's sometimes translated as fear, but the truth is it's awe. That the more you learn, the more you become in awe of Hashem. And Yira sounds very similar to what word? Iyar. That this is a time when we can access like a certain type of wisdom that's you're like, whoa, like in complete awe of God and creation in the world. It's a time of very high consciousness. Okay. Now, so we did light. We know that this is the month of light. Now we're going to move on. What's another key thing about this month is that it's the month of healing. How do we know that? Remember we said we're going to play like Torah detectives. How do we know that Iyar is the month of healing? Where do we get that from? Has anyone heard that before? Like Iyar is the month of healing? Yeah, Aviva?
Yeah, but I was thinking of like the tikkun of like the golden calf. Is that because it happened in Iyar?
No,
No. Okay.
that's later.
Oh.
Okay, so Iyar is actually an acronym. And it represents Ani, which is the Aleph, Hashem, which is the Yud and the Yud, Rofecha, which is the Resh. Ani, Hashem, Rofecha. Aleph, Yud, Yud, Resh. So what does that mean? Ani, Hashem, Rofecha?
I'm your healer.
I am God, your healer. Where is that from? Does anyone know? Because we read it very recently. It's in the Torah. Does anyone remember where we read that? Recently? Okay, so we read it over Pesach when we read the story of the splitting of the Red Sea. So right after this story, it was Parshat Beshalach, which is the section that we read in the Torah reading. So right after they cross over the Red Sea, Hashem comes up with something out of nowhere. You're like, where did this come from? And Hashem says like this. He says, all the sickness that I put on Egypt, I won't put on you if you keep the laws and the rules of Hashem, and I will be your healer. So meaning Hashem is giving us a secret. He says, okay, we put Mitzrayim behind us. Egypt is there. They're gone. You don't want to ever go there. You don't want to ever have to deal with that. How do you move forward? Keep the laws of the Torah that I'm about to give you, and that will protect you. That I will always heal you. That Hashem gave us a secret code. You want protection? You want healing? Listen to me. Don't go in that direction. Follow my path, and you will be healed forever. So that's where we get the source. And the teacher that actually teaches us that is the Ari. Do you guys know who the Ari Hakadosh is?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the Ari?
Lusata?
What's that?
Is that Lusata?
No, that's the Ramchal. Who's the Ari?
and Spa, and he was a Kabbalistic teacher in the 16th century.
Right. Did he come before or after Rabbi Shimon? After. Good. You guys are going to walk out of here Kabbalists after this class. Okay. So what else happened this month that gave us a hint into the fact that this is the month of healing? What else happened during this month? Anybody know? It's actually in the Chumash itself. I'll give you a hint.
Mishkan.
What's that?
Mishkan.
Before that.
So,
We come out of Egypt, right? We're crossing the ocean. We're not going into Israel. We're in the desert. What happens in the desert?
The spice.
Mana.
What's that? Manna.
We get on.
We're starving. We need to eat. so for like weeks we're not eating anything. So during the month of Iyar, Hashem gives us the man. What is the man?
Like magic food, wafers, magic wafers.
What's magical? What's magical?